And
Okay.
just a reminder that, yes, with the new setting, we have to turn our cameras and voices back on after I start recording.
Right, and you'll get a message to acknowledge before it will let you unmute, as I recall. So tripping everybody up on Teams meetings for several days now. So, good morning, everyone. I'm calling this meeting of the Public Safety Communications Task Force to order. It is 11:16 on June 24th, 2026, and I'm Barbara Neal. As a reminder, the meeting is being recorded, and that recording will be posted to the task force webpage after the meeting. So we'll start with our usual roll call of task force members. If you could verbally acknowledge your presence when I call your name. Dan Batesy.
Here.
Okay. Paul White.
Here.
Ron Kumitz.
Here.
Jim Mack.
Here.
And Michael Wright.
Here.
Excellent. Okay, and we also have, of course, Emily Mullaney from DPS as our administrative support, and our project management partners, Rick, Dom, and Elizabeth. Yes, Elizabeth from Televate. Morning, everybody.
Morning, everyone.
And we have a few members of the public, it looks like, as well. So I'll call your name and give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and any affiliation you would care to share. So let's start with Chris Pedotti.
Can you hear me, Bob?
I can now, yep.
Oh, sorry about that. Yes, Chris Pedotti, Emergency Communications Director, State Police Dispatch. Good morning.
Yep, welcome, Chris. Dean Gilmore.
Good morning, Barb. Dean Gilmore, Astor County Firefighters Association and Vermont State Firefighters Association.
Okay, and Emily Leinoff. She put in chat, Emily put in chat, so she's working. Newport Police and President of the Vermont Emergency Dispatch Association. Thank you. Currently at work and not able to speak. I finally got the message up in full. So thanks for joining us, Emily. And let's see, Jeff Coons.
Yeah, Jeff Coons, Versaterm, just here to watch you do what you do. Thank you again.
Okay, thanks for joining us. Okay, approval of the agenda. The agenda was distributed to task force members last week by email. It's also available on the webpage. Do we need any changes to the agenda today? All right. Hearing nothing, we'll consider it approved and move on to approval of the minutes. These would be the minutes from last week's meeting on June 17th. They were distributed to task force members by email last week, and they are also available on the website. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from June 17th?
I can move. We approve the minutes.
I will second that.
Thank you, Paul and Ron. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes from June 17th, raise your hand or signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. The minutes are approved. And we will move on to project updates. We'll start with Televate. Go ahead, Dom.
Thank you, Barb, and good morning, everyone. Televate is currently getting prepared to support the ongoing initiatives, as I'm sure you'll report soon, Barb, that the bills have been signed by the governor, so we have at least some level of approval to get going on certain items. We are preparing to move forward with those. Specifically, I know Dan requested from ADS, Advanced Digital Services, to initiate a meeting next week to get the CAD project moving forward, and Televate can support that. We have reached out to Corey Chase with Radio Technology Services to discuss the LMR, the VHF system concept. And we have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow to start that discussion. It's important, we believe, for the task force and RTS to be on the same page there. You'll recall RTS made a proposal for a build out of a VHF statewide system earlier. And Televate has a concept. There are some differences in those two concepts. We want to work through those and get on the same page. And also, we are preparing to move forward with the extended licensing for the mapping functionality as well. So that's where we stand.
Yeah, excellent. Great. And yes, I will cover some of those same things. So, well, first, are there any questions for Televate? Okay, so H935 was signed as Dom mentioned last week. So was H951. There was a question, I think, last week about when does everything become effective. I did check that, and our section of 935 becomes effective on July 1, which is next Wednesday. And there's multiple effective dates throughout H951, and I didn't comb through it all, but it's safe to assume a July 1 effective date on that. And since that's the language that relates to the Central Vermont project, the effective date, it doesn't matter that it's not effective just yet. So, that's really it for legislative updates. Any questions before we move into talking about what needs to happen next and our meeting cadence for moving forward? Okay. All right. So I had to take some time this morning to kind of hash through again what's contained in both of these bills. So I'm just going to kind of review it with everyone, make sure we're all on the same page. So in H935, we have the procurement of the multidisciplinary statewide CAD system by Department of Public Safety. That has a deadline of January 1st to have a signed contract in place. So it is, to me, that's an aggressive timeline. So good thing we've got the initial meeting on the books with ADS for next Wednesday. And hopefully after that, I hope that we'll be able to share sort of a realistic timeline for how that procurement process is going to play out and what the next steps are there. So I would suspect we would have that at some point after that meeting. And then the remaining two directives that Dom referenced in his update, the expansion of Rapid SOS and the LMR network expansion, those conversations are in the initial stages, I would say. Well, LMR, I guess, has been a long ongoing conversation, but Dan, Paul, and I met with Rick and Dom and asked them to put together an outline of the work that is going to be associated with those two things, so that we can have a little bit more meat on the bones, if you will, to the framework that exists right now. And with that, I would be looking for, more detail about the actual things that need to happen and a timeline for when we can expect those things to happen. I think we discussed having that available for our next meeting, so we can fine tune that, Rick and Dom, if we need to. And then finally, well, not finally, next in H951, we have the Central Vermont upgrade. And kind of at a high level here, the Planning Commission is required to submit a pilot project proposal by October 2nd. That includes a number of things like engineering plans for 2027 construction date, detailed descriptions of the project itself, the phases, the goals, and the benchmarks, and also details regarding budgeting and financial tracking, cost quotes, and how the cost sharing requirements will be met. So the Central Vermont team, are required to handle 30% of the costs for this project. So there'll be a lot of information in that proposal that will have to be reviewed and evaluated because the grant that's being discussed here is dependent on that proposal aligning with the LMR design concepts that have been out there on the table. So we have that, and those are from the two bills. And then the other thing that we see on the horizon is the need to review our recommendations from last year. Some of those recommendations went through in the legislation this year, some did not. And so we may want to be taking a look at those again and reprioritizing or getting a game plan together so that when we start getting questions from our legislative contacts, we've got answers and a plan of where we think this ought to go from the task force perspective. So I'm going to open this up to Dan and Paul first and say, what did I miss here about what we need to be thinking about for the next few months? And then we can talk about what a good cadence for meetings might be. So Dan, why don't you start?
Yeah, I don't think you missed much. I think that's exactly what's on my horizon as well. I think we'll have some better definition around the CAD starting soon. I'll caution you to say that I'm not sure we'll have an exact time frame, for everything because there's still a lot we don't know.
Right.
But I think we'll at least begin that process starting on Wednesday. And then, yeah, everything else you said is exactly where my brain goes.
Paul, anything?
No, I don't have anything to add. I think you covered it.
Okay. How about the rest of the task force? Thoughts on what we need to be thinking about now? You're in full agreement with me. It's excellent. Okay. It does sound like kind of a logical plan. So the next question, though, is given all of this activity, what are your thoughts on meeting cadence? And think about that for a minute, because I'm going to go to Dom. He's got his hand up. Go ahead, Dom.
Thanks, Barb. A little more clarification on the LMR project. I believe it's Televate's assumption that the task force, you mentioned the report or the information that the Central Vermont region is required to provide to the task force by the October timeframe. My assumption would be that we would provide some guidance to them prior to that, because we obviously, that's intended to be a pilot project. We want that to be consistent with the overall statewide concept that's being developed, which is, as let's say, in development, and we're beginning that process, meeting with radio technology services. We want to work together, of course, with RTS, take advantage of their expertise and their ongoing work on the statewide system. So my assumption is once a lot of those details are ironed out, we would provide some guidance to Capital Fire Group and that region in order to tell them this is what we would expect to see in your submission. And this is the way you would need to make it consistent with the statewide concept. Is that accurate?
I think we have
really
to be very
Yeah, go
careful
ahead, Dan.
there. I think we need to be very careful there. Two reasons. One, remember, this was not a recommendation of the task force.
Right.
So there's no there's no impetus for us to help them develop this as a pilot project that was simply framed that way in the legislation that was passed. That doesn't mean that we want to turn our back on them, and I think there are some ways that we may be able to help them. Second, Dom, I want to be very careful. We don't have a budget for any of this when it comes to Televate, and I think we're just going to need to be very careful how we use your time. And
Sure.
I'm not sure that loaning you out to the Capital Group to do that is the best use of what I think is going to be limited budget of your expertise.
Understand, that wasn't what I was expecting.
Okay, well,
Uh,
I think it's subject to discussion. I'm not,
Sure.
I think I'm just putting some guardrails here and saying, I think we have to be very careful. And then finally, I think there's a broader conversation we need to have about how this project is going to be evaluated and who's going to evaluate it. And I'm not sure we're at that endpoint yet. So I guess, Dom, I think there just needs to be more discussion here, and I'd be careful about making any kind of assurances or deals with them before we get this fully started.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree. The thought is, and my assumption is that we need to work out what the task force sees as the statewide concept. That's the first step, and we need to do that and iron that out. And at some point, it would be, in my mind, it would be prudent to share that with any region that may be looking to integrate with the statewide project. But we need to define,
and I don't disagree with that, Don.
parameters first.
I think exactly. I think the first priority for me is to figure out what that LMR project looks like for us. And if we're going to dedicate your time and resources, it should be on that side. Then once that happens, I think it is a logical step to say, sure, okay, here's how a project can fit into it. But again,
Right.
I want to be mindful and thoughtful about how we approach that.
Okay.
So I think what we need to do to both to move this forward and to avoid being accused of being obstructionist when it comes to that project is we need to look at the recommendation that we made for the system of systems concept, and we need to then determine what criteria we see determining whether or not a specific system of those systems project fulfills the vision for that. That it has to be some minimum number of agencies. Two fire departments can't get together and say, we expect you to do this for us. We need to put out some guidelines as to how we decide where and how to apply the money and what fulfills that vision. I may or may not be describing this my way, but that's sort of what is running around in the back of my head at the moment.
Well, I
It
don't
feels
think we get
like
to-
you're saying the same type of thing. Go ahead, Jim.
I don't think we get to say on whether the money gets spent or not necessarily, because it's under a different section. The legislature has separated that from what we have. I think we need to work on what we envision that system of systems to be, and will it mesh into it? And then if it does, then they're going to be able to go ahead regardless.
The whole thing
That
that makes
is-
me very suspicious about what transpired there is simply that there was a very specific dollar amount requested, and I have a feeling that nobody took a look at what we're trying to achieve and said, well, this is how much money we need to do to achieve our part of that vision. They just took the quotes that they've had for the last 10 years that they've been trying to get funding for and said, we need this money because this is what we want to do.
I agree with you on that.
And I don't know that achieves any of the cost savings that we envision this whole program to do. Combining combining work that's being done at VSP sites to, putting up VHF antennas and combiners and using existing infrastructure and sites and backhaul and the whole entire thing. I can't, and the other part of it is if we're going to use a specific site and we're going to put up a VHF antenna and combiner, does that in any way enable us to help service the needs of an adjacent, group of agencies?
Absolutely.
So I think that's where we need to look and see whether or not this really meets the criteria for being part of that what we envisioned, our recommendation.
Right. I think that I'm just rereading the language now, and I think there is a little bit of a guardrail in here where it says the regional communications, so it allows DPS to create a grant to implement the regional communication system upgrade project to enable Capitol Fire simulcast dispatch cell as shown in the public safety communications system design concept. Isn't that is a guardrail right there?
Sure sounds like, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well,
but I think more details needed, right?
Yeah, I mean, I saw that too, and that was the only positive side I saw to the whole thing. But I think that it alarms me that we are going to, they're really not required to give us anything until October. And so are we going to end up in 1 month with this, sort of a spinning match over what conforms with the vision, what doesn't? That isn't really a lot of time for RTS to take that information and see how those sites and things conform to, the idea that the sites can be used for adjacent groups of agencies and all that other stuff. It's a very short window to put a lot of thought into it.
Yeah, I agree, Ron. I think, however, they have reached out to us and made it clear that they intend to move faster than the October deadline. So I'm encouraged, at least, that we've heard from them that they're anxious to get started, and I think you'll see it happen before then. But I have the same hesitations you have.
Okay. What else? Or what do we do with this? Do we how do we move this part of the conversation forward? I don't know.
Well, we really can't until they provide us with some information.
Yeah. Barb, what are you looking for? Like, what do you mean move it forward?
Well, I don't want to just, it sounds like we need to hash out more details on what our vision is. And
Yeah.
so I don't want to just say, it
Yeah.
feels like there should be a placeholder somewhere for that
Yeah.
conversation.
I agree. And the meeting tomorrow is going to start to work on that.
Yeah. I think
Okay.
that's the Dom and Corey and RTS and whoever else wants to be involved in getting our house in order first. So what does
Okay.
that RTS, what does that LMR project look like? What are the, as we envision the language in H935, what's the latest plan for the rollout of what we recommended, what we intended to do. I think once we have that, and it sounds like Dom and Rick are on it with Corey here shortly, once we have that in more robust detail, then we can turn our attention to say, okay, now that we're doing this, here's how this other piece could be square pegged into it.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Yep, that kind of closed the loop in my brain. Okay. So next question is, last week I kind of floated the idea that we might need weekly meetings moving forward. I'm not sure that I feel the same way right now anyway, because all of these things just seem to be, getting started. So thought thoughts on keeping bi-weekly for a while? I mean, we all have day jobs, right? So, what do you think?
Oh, come on, Barb, that $50 a meeting isn't enough to keep you going?
I don't get that. No, this is my day job, actually. Oh. So,
I agree that there may come a time, maybe soon, where we need to meet more frequently, but right now, I don't know what we would talk about every week if we met every week. So for now, I think bi-weekly is sufficient.
I agree.
okay. Others? I see Michael's nodding. Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. I think that's good. And we can always change course if we need to later on. All right. Anything else on meeting cadence and next steps? Okay. Let's go to public comment, and I'll just go around the room here and see who has anything to add. So Chris Pedoti, let's start with you.
I have nothing to add, Barb. Thank you.
Okay. Dean.
I have not a lot to say except that it is frustrating that you have to deal with this backdoor politics stuff. We certainly didn't agree with this. And we're anxious to move the part that did go through at your recommendations. We're anxious to see that move forward. So.
All right. Thank you. Emily, I see you put a comment in the chat that you're all set on public comment at this time. So that's good. And let's see, who else do we have here? Jeff Koons.
Nothing to add. Good luck. You've got a lot of work coming ahead of you guys.
Yes, thank you. And I see Kim Cheney joined after we did the introductions of public, but Kim, do you have anything to add today? If you're speaking, Kim, you're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
I had some health problems that sidetracked me from all that's gone on, and I'm anxious to catch up with it. It sounds like it sounds like education all over a bit again. Just enormous fighting over how we're going to regionalize and hopefully make more efficient our whole system. So, Barb, I'm going to have to get hold of you and have a chat and hope to get up to date. But it sounds like the mix is going along, and maybe somebody will flash a light on it and it'll explode.
Well, we can certainly talk offline, Kim, and I can get you caught up on what went on at the legislature towards the end, and we'll go from there.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, did I miss anyone? Doesn't look like it. Any new business for today? All right. Then we're on to confirming the next meeting date and adjourning. So per our discussion a minute ago, we're going to stick with the every 2 weeks for now, and that we are on the books for a July 8th meeting at 11:15. So if there is nothing else, are we ready to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will
Thank you, Jim.
second that.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, all in favor of adjourning for today, raise your hand or signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hands are up. The ayes are in. Okay, thank you once again, everybody. And we will talk to you in a couple weeks, if not before. Have a safe and happy 4th of July.
Yes,
Same to
happy
you.
4th of July. Everybody.
Thank you,
everyone.
USA
Thank you.
250.
everyone.
Yay.
Yeah.